The kids on Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them.
There's something out there, isn't there?
Halloweenies, a Freddy Krueger podcast.
Was locked in a room with a girl who went in alive and came out in a rubber bag.
From the Consequence Podcast Network, the minds behind the Losers Club, comes a new podcast in fantasy terror.
Nancy, there's something wrong with you. You're imagining things.
Halloweenies, a Freddy Krueger podcast.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. If you're not a subscriber, I hope you do subscribe to the series. We put out interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Consequence of Sound. Would love to keep you up to date on every single one of those, and you can subscribe anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. That includes iTunes and Apple Podcasts, where you can give a rating and leave a review. You can also subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest, Natalie Mering. You know her as Weyes. The brand new record is called Titanic Rising, and the accolades have been pouring in over this record. You can definitely expect it to land on a lot of best of lists at the end of the year, as well as those best of lists of the end of the year so far that's probably about to come out. Natalie and I are going to talk about how this record starts a new chapter of her artistic career, and a lot of the very heavy themes that it features. Climate change and anxiety, which both seem to play a part in the album artwork too, which finds her submerged in a bedroom filled to the brim with water. That was a real shot. They actually made that bedroom and filled it with water, and she's going to tell us the story about that as well. It's really interesting. We'll also talk about the concept of true love. There's a line in one of the singles from Titanic Rising, from the song Every Day, where she says true love is making a comeback. It's a statement that says a lot of things, and I'm curious about that as well. And we geek out about our shared love of movies and television, and the cautionary part of it all in the peak TV era that we're currently in. Talking about this fantastic record, Titanic Rising, it's Kyle Meredith with Weyes.
Hi, this is Natalie from Weyes.
Well, first off, let me congratulate you because this album, Titanic Rising, has been, it just like dominated the college radio charts, and all the critics are loving it, and it is a damn great record.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I guess there has been a lot of comparison. I've noticed a lot of the reviewers, they always seem to compare this one to your earlier albums, more so than I see them do other artists. Is the journey as evident to you as it's being painted to the public?
Yeah, I have always kind of been like a big lump of raw clay in my nature. There's a lot to work with, but it's really just a matter of kind of refining it and getting down to the nitty gritty. And I think any time in music, especially in the way music's set up now, where you're kind of expected to do it all yourself, everybody's kind of expected to be a Todd Rundgren from a very small point in their career. So I think for me, this record might stand out so much because it was my first real album made with the support of like a label that was kind of, believing in what I was doing and wanted to do it, in a real way. And I think before it was kind of like a little bit more DIY, which has its limitations.
A great reference point, Todd Rundgren. So.
Yeah. Well, it's hard for some people because I think so many people can record at home and play everything that labels have kind of a misconception on what they should expect from their artist. They're like, oh, couldn't you just record that at your apartment? It's like, well,
it's
maybe.
So different from how it was before, I don't know, 2005, 2008, somewhere in there. Because that would have never have been a question, ever have been a question from a record label.
Yeah, it would have been like, hell no, we're not going to let you record
right.
in your dopey apartment. We're not going to let you play the drums on your album. You're not as good as, Jim Keltner and all the greats.
Well, so beyond the music, and this being that turning point, as you're saying, do you feel like lyrically that this record acts as, does it work as the next chapter to what we heard on Front Row Seat to Earth? Because, we find some similar themes, and I don't know if story-wise if it's a continuation.
Yeah, I think that it's its own thing. I do feel like there are things that I touch upon on Front Row Seat to Earth, and Front Row Seat to Earth is about kind of, these macrocosmic societal movements and how they would affect you on a microcosmic personal level. So those things are always at play. play, but I think this record gets a little bit more specific conceptually and lyrically. And Front Row Seat to Earth is really more of a like road trip where it's just kind of moody and, late at night or something, which I like both. I like both realms.
Because people are multi-layered, and that's good.
Yeah.
Some of those bigger themes. How much does climate figure into these songs, as I feel like I've read about?
Well, I think it's kind of on the tip of my tongue for sure, and like something to believe, and a lot's going to change, like literally a lot is going to change, physically in our external world. But also Wild Time, I think, is the most specifically about overpopulation and just kind of the wildness and the unhinged industrialization. And in a lot of ways, I think it does reflect nature as much as it's like killing nature and a perversion of nature, the way that it functions in terms of just kind of this massive infection of human activity. It's actually in its own way biological, and I think if we look at it that way, it becomes slightly less dystopian, and you kind of feel like, this is just a reflection of ourselves. Like, this is just a reflection of internal desires that have kind of now are beyond what we can comprehend, especially because I don't think anybody can fully comprehend, how much waste they create in a given day or how much impact certain things have on the rest of the world. So we really are kind of suspended in an imaginary realm. And yeah, I don't want anybody to be too disillusioned by that to not do anything about it. So
well, it's interesting, even when you just look at the the album title, because if we were to take it to the literal part of history, I mean, the moment the Titanic rises is the moment everyone falls. By the time I'm done listening to this, while I've enjoyed it on one level, on a very basic level, if I try to look too deep psychologically, I guess I wonder, is the ultimate outcome for you personally optimistic or pessimistic? Hopeful at all?
I think ultimately hopeful and optimistic, yeah, for sure. I think, and that's kind of an exercise that I was doing while making the record. I was like, I'm going to talk about this stuff, but do it in a way that's like poetry. And because I think it's so hard for us to take all this news and changes in the format that we're all taking it in through social media and just kind of reading articles, and to have somebody create some conceptual art about it, I think is in a lot of ways more hopeful. And I think that people kind of need to mythologize what's going on around them to psychologically comprehend and see it in a picture that isn't just pure chaos, which I think science and kind of the way that our society is set up, sometimes things just feel incredibly dystopian and chaotic.
I mean, that even ties, I'm looking at the album artwork here too, as you're saying that, you're literally underwater in that.
Yeah, it's a bedroom underwater.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, I mean, you all actually made a submerged bedroom for this?
Yes, we built a set and submerged it underwater.
And how was that? I mean, what was that process like?
It was really intense. Working with water is twice as hard. It's twice as dangerous. It takes twice as long. Twice as many things can go wrong. And you have like way less time to shoot because, things that you put underwater will disintegrate over a certain period of time. So we built the set in 4 days, submerged it, decorated it, and had a couple hours to capture what you're seeing before things started getting bloated and crazy.
It's beautiful, too.
It was a time capsule.
And that's the thing, when we go back to what you were just talking, the dystopian side of things, here you are in a moment submerged underwater, but you don't look like you're drowning.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that we had a couple images to choose from. And I chose this one because I'm looking and I'm alive. And I want this not to be, here I am drowned in my bedroom. I want it to be like, here is a conceptual bedroom full of conceptual water, because I think, there's a lot of different layers to the meanings, especially relating to like water being kind of the subconscious force and the bedroom being in a lot of ways a place of initiation for most westernized youth. That's kind of where they formulate their ideas about the world, however disillusioned and backwards they might be.
But even that, I mean, when I look back on how I saw the world, at a younger age, I might have been wrong, but I'm so grateful that I had that wide-eyed, I don't know if wonder was, sometimes it was, but just that, because because as so many great things comes from youth because the weight and cynicism has just not put you down yet, and that's the only reason I think a lot of us even had the guts to go for something at that point. So being able to hold on to that in any way.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly a disillusioned experience for Americans. I think there's a lot of the point of initiation into adulthood is really messed up here because there's no education on the subject, which I think some other westernized countries might do a better job of being like, okay, this is how you pay taxes and this is how credit card debt works. Right. And I feel like with a lot of Americans, they're like, you're special, you're great. Then you just kind of get dumped into the world and you kind of don't realize that you're going to be perpetually behind for the rest of your life.
You have the single Every Day, which, sidebar, I absolutely love. And I do not seem to get tired of with each listen. Just saying something in a radio station who plays it all the time. But there is a line.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a line in it. True love is making a comeback. Do you think that speaks to a generational picture, or did you intend it maybe as just a personal statement?
Well, I think both. I would hope that it's like a universal hope that people would miss this idealistic concept of love, but it might also be something that I was raised wanting to believe in. But I think no matter what, that resonates with people, and most people are like, yeah, really? Can it please? Like, people are hoping for that.
Well, to say it made a comeback is that the idea of true love has vanished.
I think in some ways it might have been replaced by some other stuff, some other hoopla, individualism, capitalism, kind of being spoiled for choice, kind of like romantic ideas extracted from emotionally manipulative movies. We're all kind of brainwashed in one way or another, and I think a lot of people have trouble sustaining love in this generation simply because maybe that fabric is kind of turning into something else. But I think in the midst of that kind of breakdown of monogamy and marriage, there's people that get a little disenchanted and sad about it. And I don't think it's particularly sad. And I think true love will always be there, however fleeting or momentary it will be. So, yeah, I would hope that as opposed to being like, oh, we're all fucked. Yeah, that people would be like, no, if you believe in it, it'll come back.
It says a lot for when folks talk about the era that we're in, looking a whole lot like the Reaganism era of the 80s and what was going on there, because all the things you just said could have applied to how we look back on that decade, especially.
It's so funny. And it's so funny to me now that there are people who are really nostalgic for that time.
Well,
they miss the innocence.
The nostalgia will cloud actual fact and we never look back on the times that we were just...
They miss thinking that Indiana Jones movie wasn't racist. They're like, I didn't realize how racist this was. It's like, it's so funny to me, but yeah.
So you've got a song on here called Movies, and to me, the movies, the way they shape us, and especially when you tie a song in, you've got a great recipe for peak nostalgia. I don't know. It sounds like that's something that's kind of been on your mind too, or maybe you just that's where we're going, that's where we're taking this.
Yeah, I think movies have kind of a strange impact on people that we haven't fully comprehended yet, and I'm fascinated by them. As a generation that might have been the most like cinematically saturated generation with VHS and TVs made for movies and movies on TV, and then the huge blockbusters. It's a lot of movies.
I can honestly say we were talking about this. Me and some friends were talking about this a bit earlier today, because I came of age in the 90s when musically we were in the soundtrack era, and that's how I discovered a lot of my favorite artists, a lot of important artists I discovered through soundtracks and everything.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah, the way we talk about movies and the way we talk about music, I mean, both of them can be time machines in a very nostalgic sort of way. But when you do have that connection of a song that not only takes you back to a moment in Empire Records or Dazed and Confused or something, but you can also feel the moment that you're in that room and what you were doing. I mean, to me, that's everything. So I can't entirely. I despise the idea of watching too much TV, but I can never quit it because of what it's led me to, I guess.
Yeah, no. I think that we're all have a love-hate relationship with it. I can't stop. I'm on the Netflix. I'm on the Prime Video. I'm on Hulu. I'm streaming. I am into the content. I mean, I do think it's getting even more oversaturated and messed up, but I think that it's become a rite of passage in a way for us as a society to kind of create our own myths and communicate with one another.
You know, we used to be crazy about 300 channels and that it was going to rot our brains, and now we're in peak moments in television history, and it's well beyond
Yeah, we're
that.
like 300 new Netflix specials. Good luck. They got to give these people a ticket. Like, they got to police Facebook first and foremost, then they got to police Amazon, then they got to police Netflix.
Right.
These people are spreading their trash.
Well, okay, so I love how you've written about it, how all of this kind of makes in because what we're talking about here is you know, in the end, it is dark, heavy content, and yet you've written about it so beautifully of a record that just kind of, you know, that one of the few albums. I mean, you know, not every record is a great album, I guess is what I'm saying, and to be able to put it on from start to finish, you know, and to go on that journey.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Which, by the way, I will bring up, speaking of that journey, because we start out, and it seems like you meant to do this, but we start out and you sort of give that AM 70s vibe, and then suddenly, you know, when you get to the title track moment of the record, it's like the whole rug is yanked out from under us, and we descend into that submerged room with you. It's a fantastic moment.
Oh, man, thank you. That means a lot.
Congratulations on the Titanic Rising, Natalie. It has been a pleasure to talk to you today. I really appreciate it. And
Yeah, it's been my pleasure, too.
yeah, hopefully I'll see you out on the road, too. I can't wait to catch this tour.
Yeah, no, we'd love to come to Louisville.
Yeah, bro, look at you.
right?
You did it. I could even tell that you were trying to get it right, too, and you did get it right.
Oh, good, good. Thank you.
All
Well,
right.
have a wonderful day.
You too, Natalie. Take care.
Okay, bye.
My thanks to Natalie Mering. The new Weyes Blood record is called Titanic Rising. It is out now. And again, before you get out of here, I hope you subscribe to this series right now. Again, you can subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts from, including iTunes and Apple Podcasts, where you can also give a rating and leave a review as well. After that, head to WFPK.org, where you can catch me every single weekday and find some bonus episodes of this series. ConsequenceOfSound.net has your music and film news. You can find me at Twitter at Kyle Meredith and Facebook/Kyle Meredith. And that does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.